Speaking of athletic talent, as we head out to Halas Hall, don't mind the video that I played yesterday of him looking mediocre to awful in Arizona. But, he bounces back. He's working out his game. He's going to Midtown and doing something. And now he's, of course, at Halas Hall. What's up, Adam Hogue?
Noon tomorrow, Midtown. I'll kill you.
Oh, yeah. Let's go.
Well, I work on Fridays, Adam. I go and cover the Bears locker room. So noon's not going to work.
Okay.
But if you'd like to adjust that time.
Jeff Joniak's going to yell at you tomorrow. I cannot wait.
Yeah, I got something for Joniak, too.
I don't know, 10. Whatever time we need to go before you have to go to Halas.
Great. 10 it is. All right. Let's talk about what matters here. Where do you want to start? I know that there's a lot of stuff coming out of there, from Montez to Hightower to we played a little bit of Thomas Brown to start the show because that guy is making me feel really good about having him on the staff, and I wanted to be our head coach on an interim basis. But where would you like to start today, Adam Hogue?
Well, we could start there because I think he's making a lot of the players here feel really good about things too. So, yeah, just second week in a row, and I can't even remember. Was I here last week? I don't remember. So maybe that was my first Thomas Brown press conference. I don't think I was. Oh, yeah, we were in studio last week for whatever reason. So, yeah, to be in there for the first time and kind of we've had chances to talk to him this year, but, press conference setting, I don't know how else to explain it other than it's a different vibe, and I don't really think it's that complicated. He's somebody who's when he's talking, you want to listen to him. He's saying things that make sense. Sometimes football does not need to be that complicated, and for him to just say, "How can we design as many unsackable plays as possible?" Yeah, I like that plan. That's good stuff. It's good stuff, especially when your quarterback's been getting sacked too much. And I think you saw that on Sunday, right? So, but now the challenge is different this week. I'm really, really interested to see this battle between Thomas Brown and Brian Flores this week. I think it's going to be fun to watch because of what we know about that Vikings defense. I know you guys have already covered it today, but one of the things I liked what he said was he said that one of the best compliments you can get as a coordinator, as a coach, is your players taking on your personality. And he feels like that's what the Vikings have done in Minnesota, that those players have taken on Brian Flores' personality. They play aggressive. And so I followed up and asked him, is there still enough time left in this season to get your players to play with your personality? I think I kind of caught him off guard with the question a little bit because he was like, I haven't really thought about it like that, and I'm not really sure I will. But I do think, even though it's a small sample size, one game, I think we already saw a little bit of that, right? So the question is, can that continue the rest of the season? And if it does, then maybe, Carm, there comes a point where we talk about the kind of what you led into this whole conversation with, which was, Thomas Brown, the possible future head coach of some team. And if he does become a head coach of some team in the NFL at some point, and he ends up being very successful, we'll be looking back at the end of 2024 as either the moment the Bears realized this and kept him around, or the moment they let him get away.
Adam, I'm just noticing you're in the same spot I was yesterday. You're in the spaceship under the stairs. I'm seeing people walk over you, and
yeah,
I see what I'm seeing now.
I was jealous. I wanted to come see the Shed Aquarium myself. The Dolphins are flying today, not the Miami Dolphins. And I like this spot. It's a good vibe.
So it's an interesting little scenario you're teeing up here, Hogue. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that the offense continues to move forward. They go up against a really good Minnesota Vikings team this week. They put up points. Maybe they even win the game. Or even in another way, they put up points and they lose the game because the defense has gone south and can't get to the quarterback, and Sam Darnold has a day, all those things. At some point, it might become difficult for the Bears to let a guy like Thomas Brown, if he really connects with Caleb, let him go out the door. Like, this is a big-time audition for him. And it could complicate things in some ways.
Well, and that last part is what's, going to be very interesting. And honestly, I think we're getting ahead of this a little bit with this conversation because it's been one game. They scored 19 points.
Should have been 20.
And the bar was and the bar was extremely low. I mean, they scored 3 points against the New England Patriots. So let's just see how this continues to build. But that being said, even if you take head coach out of the conversation, this is about Caleb. This is supposed to be about Caleb. And whoever you hired in January was supposed to be the guy that was married to Caleb for a long time here in Chicago. And there's a lot of examples across the league of these head coach quarterback pairings working. And so you got to identify that if like, let's say hypothetically this continues the rest of the season where everybody's feeling good, not only about the offense, but specifically that relationship, then yeah, that's got to be a consideration that you don't want to, even if you're hiring somebody else, is there any world in which you can keep Thomas Brown around to keep continuity on that side of the ball? And that's always hard to do when you change your coaching staff. But here's another part of this that's a little bit unclear at this point. To a certain extent, I think when you listen to Caleb yesterday, when you listen to Caleb after the game Sunday, you are hearing, a lot of good things. Play calls came in faster. Everything was smoother. The communication, all these things. Nick, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, did you hear have you heard any glowing praise yet of just, their relationship? Because a week ago, it was like, I've barely talked to this guy. You know what I mean? So I just that's the other part of this that is still. That's why I'm saying I think we're getting out of it a little bit too early here because I don't know. These guys have been together for like 10 days at this point. So I don't know that that's enough time to make any conclusions over what their relationship is like or will be.
No, it's a good point because I think when you think of positive things Caleb said, like getting the play call in faster, that's also not something about their personalities matching. It's a good, fair point. But Adam, Thomas Brown wasn't the only coordinator that spoke. You have something real quick?
Well, I just want to push back on that for a second because Caleb Williams did call Thomas Brown TB. I never heard him call Shane Waldron SW. He used TB. That is those are a loving way of putting it out there with the 2 letters. So there is something building there. I could smell it. I could sense it. I just want to bring that to the forum here. Back to you, Nick.
All right, MC.
Can I bring up?
Yeah.
Can I bring up one more thing, though, before we switch the conversation? Because I think there was another thing. I know I'm kind of sitting here downplaying some of this stuff right now, but, like, I'm not going to lie. There was a lot of things Thomas Brown said today that I really, really liked. And one of them was, he's getting kind of questioned about, how this is Shane Waldron's offense. It's his playbook. Like, what can you do to get more comfortable, right, with what you want to run? And he said, it doesn't matter what I'm comfortable with. I don't play. I can always adapt and adjust. He was very clear that, I have to make my players comfortable with what they're running. And this is one of the most fundamental conversations that I do not know how many times I've done a show or a podcast over the last 12, 13 years, 14 years, whatever it's been, where we're having this type of conversation because too many times the Bears have had coaches that are like, nope, this is what we're doing, and the players better adapt. And quite frankly, now, I'm not going to say that there isn't some level of truth to that because, honestly, that's what the HITS principle is, right? Like, we're going to bring in guys that do this, and we're going to get rid of the ones that don't, and they're going to adapt to what we're doing. And this is how we do it. And honestly, that's paid off. But I think on the offensive side of the ball, especially when you're just talking about scheming things up to get the ball into players' hands, it's a little bit of a different conversation than just hustling and playing with effort, which is really what the HITS principle is about. That's why I remember us even when Flus first got here, us kind of like balking at like, all right, but how does that translate to offense? Like, that's great that everybody's hustling, but what does that necessarily have to do with getting the ball in the end zone? And I think that's where they've been kind of slow to adapt. And on that side of the ball, you got to have a coordinator that's willing to be flexible, to understand what his players' strengths are, and to scheme up plays to what those strengths are. So I also think that that's been a shift here in the last 10 days or so, and hopefully we continue to see that. And they better do it this week because the type of defense they're facing is completely different.
Or anything for the record. If that dude walked into me and I was right, I was like, you know what, I'm going to implement the hits principle. I would have been like, okay. That's not going to work. Why don't you? That would be great at Edgewood Junior High. Nick, go ahead. Move us along. I know you want to pivot to another conversation.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas Brown obviously is getting a lot of talk, but there are other coordinators that spoke at him, and you were there. But anything you want to highlight from Washington or Coach Hightower?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about Richard Hightower because this was as much as Thomas Brown's been rightly discussed, and it's been a huge story. Obviously, with the way the game ended on Sunday, a lot of people wanting to hear from Richard Hightower. I mean, I've sat in some of these press conferences on Thursdays, guys, where it's me and Potsy and Larry Mayer, and that's the whole press conference. Today was a little bit more populated in that room, which Richard Hightower made note of when he walked in, and he says he does keep track of who's there every single week. So, Carm's, I don't think Carm's been a special teams press conference his entire life, so that's been noted.
I just fall asleep, but that's no disrespect to Richard Hightower. It's just
wow.
The time of the day that it happens,
Right.
Come on. But anyway, you're right, Hogue. Keep going. I'm sorry.
He does listen to the show, I'm pretty sure, by the way, so you might want to take that back.
I love Richard Hightower. I'm a huge Richard Hightower fan. Just, when you ask some question about, ball placement and,
Oh, so you're falling asleep at my question, not his answer. That's a good way to.
Okay, yes. Okay.
That's a good way to cover your ass. I like that.
CYA.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought his opening statement was very interesting. I don't even want to tee this up. I just want people to hear it. So this was Richard Hightower getting on the podium today. Here's what he had to say.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. All right. I have to address y'all like the players if you want to say good afternoon. All right. Obviously, extremely disappointed with the way the game ended. First and foremost, extremely disappointed for our players. But I'm also disappointed for support staff, our entire organization, and for the city of Chicago. As I always tell you all, for any success or any failure of any field goal, it starts with the protection, the operation, and the execution. And when those things are right, you have a successful field goal. When those things are wrong, your field goal isn't what you want it to be. And that starts and ends with me. And that was not the desired result that we wanted on that play. However, I am excited about the look in the guy's eyes and us turning the page and an opportunity to respond versus Minnesota.
Okay. If you're not going to give the head coaching job to Thomas Brown, just give it to Richard Hightower then. That was phenomenal. Come on, man.
Good afternoon.
The other guy, and I get it, things have gone way south for Flus, and I get that his energy has gone down. But, put him out, we all see it. The energy's gone. We need something like that. I'm ready to move forward. Come on. Way to go, HT. I mean, I'm assuming that was your reaction there, something along those lines, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting that look. One thing is he always comes prepared to these press conferences every week. He has, things he wants to talk about. It's not the first week that he's, kind of gone with a prepared opening statement. And obviously this week, given how the game ended, I don't blame him for it at all. And I think that, there was accountability in there, which is what people want to, even players want to hear it, but also fans want to hear it. I don't think anybody in this situation, and I'm seeing it in the comments right now, they're going up on the screen, nobody's blaming Richard Hightower for what happened, but he is the coach of the unit. So, good for him to take accountability for it happening. And that's part of being a coach. Even when something is not necessarily your fault, you take accountability for it, because honestly, even a sliver of it kind of is, right? Because if there's something that the Packers saw on film and exploited, then it is your job as the coach to get your guys prepared for that. even if, they probably still were prepared for it, it was just kind of an unfortunate way that play played out. But, could there have been reminders of being stout inside in that situation? They're so beat up on the offensive line, which is one of the questions I asked them today. Like, I don't know that they could have possibly made a sub, even if it was on film that Matt Pryor's been playing high. He just plays high. We talked about that with Baldy yesterday. You just see 6'9" or whatever he is. So there's only so much you can do as a coach, but things are still going to go wrong, so you take accountability for it. And, I think that I thought he handled a lot of things in that press conference well today.
Okay.
Because we need to talk about the hash part too.
Yeah, well,
let's get.
It's a good. I was just teeing it on the prior part. It's a good underlying. Like, hey, man, when your entire offensive line is beat up, then who's he supposed to throw out there? However, I will also throw out that Jake Curran, who played well last week, and the Bears had Ryan Bates ahead of him, which that's a whole different conversation, but it seems like they had that evaluated perhaps wrong. All right, talk to me about the hash. What do you have to say about the whole Cairo wanting, kicking from the right hash, at least as extra points, the Bears trying to win it from the left hash, Flus saying they've never talked about it. What came out on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, if we're being completely honest here, the head coach put him in a tough spot because it just doesn't sound good if the narrative is that we didn't think about it, we didn't talk about it, because as I said on yesterday's show, they do talk about these things. They as soon as you start to get into field goal range, and even before that, you are on the sideline with your specialists talking about distance, hashes, wind, all of that, especially when it comes down to an end-of-half field goal or an end-of-game field goal, especially. So, and I just find it really hard to believe with the communication and the headsets that they have that wasn't talked about. So that's just me interjecting my opinion on the whole thing, because I know enough about how the Bears have operated here. So that kind of puts the coordinator then in a tough position in his press conference, right? But I thought Richard Hightower handled it well, because he basically said everything I just said there. Like, we talk about these things, we're always planning for these things, and at the end of the day, he kept calling it a team decision to kick from where they did. So you can take that how you want, but I do think that's a good way of handling it, being like, we are a team. It's a team decision. And at the end of the day, it is your job to block up front from wherever the kick is on the field, whatever the distance is on the field. And it's your job as the kicker to make the kick and do everything you can. So, I'm just relaying the information here from Halas Hall, but I thought it was a tough spot to be in today. And again, I thought that it was handled about as properly as it could have been.
Okay, before we move any forward, just want to remind people as we close out the hour here for our TV viewers, that the great thing to do right now if you want to support the show is to become a diehard. You get a free T-shirt, discounts to all our events, access to our Discord, where I'll be hanging out after the show today, talking to the people, my favorite people. Do that, become a diehard. Thank you for watching the CHGO Bears podcast. Nick, you got anything else for Sir Hogue?
No, I think this is a good time to just rest. Put the kicking, the field goal block to bed. Like, I don't know, we're not gonna get any more about it. Moving on to Minnesota, and I think it's about time the field goal block is done with. That's all.
I would like to know why Curran was taken off the field goal block team, field goal protection team. Can we get to the bottom of that one? Anybody talk about that?
I'm with. Can you? Okay, honestly, when was he taken off?
I don't know. I feel like Curran wasn't out there. I'm coming out there tomorrow. I'm going to talk to Jake. I'll handle this myself. I will. I'll get to the bottom of my.
I do know that Tevin Jenkins has been in there, one of the guard spots, and he was out, so he's expected to be back this week. Will he be in there where Matt Pryor was? Is something to watch on Sunday.
All I know is that Jake Curran went to Jewish summer camp, and
we know,
and that's my guy, because Camp Nebagamon is where I learned to be the great person that I am. All right, Hoger, do we need to? Did anything come out of the from Eric Washington that was interesting? We haven't touched on that. I'm not sure if we missed anything today.
I got a little nugget from John Hoke, which half of which I was at, but our guy Pat Norton was in the whole thing, and I think Pat tweeted this out. But one, just in case there's any questions about this, but Tyreek Stevenson will continue to start. However, that rotation is also going to continue, and I thought it was interesting because John Hoke basically said that the way it was presented to Tyreek. Now, this was interesting. I have to go back in the timeline because didn't this start after the Washington game? Or no, it was going on in that Washington game.
That sounds right. I'd have to go back to be honest. But
I think the rotation started in that game, and then it was after what happened in the Hail Mary that Terrell Smith got the start the following week, but the rotation continued. Regardless, he basically said that he brought it up in the position room, like, hey, what do you think if we go back to the rotation that we did last year? And Tyreek was all for it because apparently those two are really, really close. Now, again, I'm just relaying what we were being told here. Apparently, everybody in the situation's okay with that rotation continuing, and there really isn't any drama behind the scenes with that, especially if those two guys are close. Like Tyreek wants Terrell Smith to get some reps. So I just found that extremely interesting because it was about this time last year. Remember that they started a similar rotation, and now they're doing it again.
I mean, we literally were talking about that earlier in the show, Adam. I want to see more Terrell Smith, and it did start in that game against Washington. He had 11 defensive snaps, 9 in Arizona. He also got a little injured in that game, 27 against New England, 19 against Green Bay, defensive snaps. So more Terrell Smith, I don't think that's a bad thing at all, just considering how he's been playing when asked to be on the football field.
No pushback from me, and good to see Greg Braggs in the stands. At least someone is working today. I don't know what that means, but I'm glad that Greg is alive and well in the snow. Stay safe out there. Mm-hmm. All right, Adam, I'll see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock in Midtown. Is that what's up? We're going to film this one-on-one?
All right.
2s and 3s to 22. What are we doing?
What's a day pass? I'm going too.
I got Hogan Johns at 9, so we're going to have to figure – I'm not bad. We're going to just figure out the time. We figure out the time. We'll make it happen.
Oh, wow. This is we're on a full – this is a thing now.
Hell yeah.
Steven, who you picking?
I haven't seen Hoke play. Carm, I will say you were –
yeah,
I mean this in a positive way. You were a lot better than I thought you were going to be. But I haven't seen Hoke play other than that video that you sent me.
I showed
when
you
I was trying to wrap the show yesterday.
This dude was getting schooled in Arizona. Got schooled.
Steven, you don't need to see. I'm just trust me. This won't be close. It's
yeah. CHGO Bears podcast 2 basketball court.
I'll be shocked if he scores, honestly.
Oh,
wow.
He said you suck.
So now is where I will officially get offended. Do you know who you're talking to? Do you realize that Tim Dwight...
Yes, I'm talking to somebody who's about 6 inches shorter than me that will not be able to get around me.
Okay.
So unless you're doing fadeaway threes that get over my long wingspan, and you just turn in Jordan.
Dominate you.
I want it on the record that there's only one person on this show who beat Tim Dwight, one of the greatest punt returners in the history of the NFL, beam to the bucket, intramurals, Elite Eight, taking on the football team, Team Windy Hill. That's right, named after Jordan Street. Dwight guarding Carm. I had my groin or my hamstring, I forget which one, was injured at the time, and I still took him to the cup and laid it in. We were up 2-0. Now we did lose 49-28. That's okay. You can find this, by the way, on the internet if you'd like to, search the Daily Iowan out there. And Hoke thinks I can't get a shot off on him. At this dilapidated age with a bad toe, I'm getting some shots up. I promise you.
He was in Arizona.
And the craziest thing is this is probably, for your sake, the best time of year to play me because I completely shut down once we go into football season. I have not played a full game since January of last year. I'm out of shape. I'm not worried.
Not worried.
Right. Well, just so you can have fun on the way out here. In my tennis league, I finished dead last, and then we had the playoffs, and I did not pull the upset, and I lost. And then last night we had the back draw tournament, and there was, I don't know how many people out there, 6 or 8. And I had 3 matches, and I lost all of those. So finished dead last in the back draw.
Consistency.
I did not sleep well last night. I'm glad that I got that out. Do you want to stick around for the video where Ethel nearly goes down here, Hogue, or do you want to go?
I don't know what that means, and I got work to do.
See you, Adam.
See you later. Great job,
Bye,
Adam
guys.
Hogue out at Halas Hall.
We all silly like the mayor.